Well. Here we are, 50 Multiverse Wars episodes. And today's episode, this is going to be something special because remember Arkham Batman versus Insomniac Spider-Man? Well, in that episode, Batman lost to Spider-Man because, Spider-Man is genuinely just faster, stronger, more durable, and all that stuff. But despite the fact that he lost, Arkham Batman still gets another chance to win. And he's not doing it alone this time. This is the Batfamily from the Arkhamverse of games versus the FNAF crew from the FNAF franchise. This team includes Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Jason Todd, aka the Red Hood, versus Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, Chica the Foxy the Pirate Fox, and Springtrap. I'm including Springtrap because, I don't know if I wanted Golden Freddy here because maybe the battle might be an easy win for Team FNAF, but I decided to put in Springtrap here just mix things up. So now that we got all our members here, without further ado, let's get straight into this. Let's go with the 50th episode of Multiverse Wars. Freddy Fazbear is one of the most iconic FNAF characters of all time, considering the fact that he is in the name of Five Nights at Freddy's. He serves as being the main leader of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza crew, and is pretty much the main character or main animatronic of said restaurant or series that they're promoting. But secretly, Freddy was possessed by a dead child who was been killed by William Afton, and now he rots away in this old animatronic bear and seeks out revenge on the person who killed him. And for all the animatronics, we're going to be using the first 4 games and FNAF World, excluding feat from the books and Freddy in Space, because that would be pretty much overkill for a Team Arkham vs. Batfamily. So yeah. Now as for Freddy's powers and abilities, he may look like a standard old animatronic, but he is actually far more impressive than you might think. He is a master of all things stealth, as he can easily avoid people and pretty much hide from them, making sure that no one can see him for a long amount of time before he gets his due back and job done by killing them easily. He also comfortably sits in the street levels of attack potency, as he is capable of shoving a fully grown man into an animatronic suit that forces him to crush his skull to the point where only his eyes and teeth are able to survive from the time frame from the FNAF 1 death screen. Freddy's also strong enough to crack skulls with just his jaw alone, and he should be comparable to the other animatronics who could easily tear the player apart. And as for his speed, it is around fairly average points. It's at the point where an average human can keep up with them. And he is comparable to Foxy, who can easily run across the pizzeria to the security office in just a few seconds, really. This proves that Freddy is actually fairly fast despite his looks and his age. He also should be comparable to pretty much any other animatronic, as he can rush the player in seconds, although the distance clears depends on where them at the moment. So yeah. And now it's time we go to his FNAF World feats. He becomes way more powerful than he would normally would in the original games, because he has several different power-ups and weaponries at his disposal, like the bites and chips. This allows him to curse people, pretty much decrease all the opponent's stats, regeneration, which allows him to regenerate any damage that he has taken from another opponent, and pretty much manipulate death itself, and explosions via bomb bites and the Reaper bites for the death manipulation part I said, and life drain via Ibot bites, which allows him to drain the life force of the opponent that he's fighting. This allows him to pretty much be a much bigger threat than he normally would if we were just using the first 4 games, which this pretty much makes him an extreme threat. But as for his weaknesses, however, his intelligence is below average, as due to being possessed by a child, he very much lacks experience because he was killed before he had a normal life, of course. But overall, Freddy Fazbear is the horror legend that we all know and love, pretty much known for being nostalgic as hell. Now let's move on to the other animatronics pretty quickly. Bonnie the Bunny is the second most well-known animatronic within the FNAF series. He is also the second lead to Freddy within the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria pizza place, and he is widely well known for being the first animatronic to be implemented within the franchise, and the only one to truly give Scott Cawthon nightmares when he first fell asleep, but then when he was awake, pretty much yeah. Bonnie was also known for being commonly misgendered for being a girl, but in reality, he's supposed to be a male character, or at least supposed to be in the FNAF, secret or something. Yeah. And now let's discuss what he can do in a fight. He's mostly similar to the other animatronics like Freddy because he can easily scale to him due to the fact that he's strong enough to stuff a fully grown man into an animatronic suit to the point where it kills them, fast enough to keep up with Foxy, and pretty much strong enough to pretty much crush a grown man pretty much twice the size of him and force him overtime. However, he does still suffer from the fact that the other animatronics do. They're not very durable. They only range around street level at least. While they are durable, they can survive certain impacts and punches and certain attacks. They're still not invincible, as they can pretty much be destroyed by anything that's way more powerful than them, like, I don't know, a missile that can easily kill them. But it's also for the fact that their intelligence is still below average, as they were still just kids when they were killed by William Afton and possessed the animatronics, so they do lack experience in the world, or at least in combat, really. They are experts at killing people, sure, but they're not really known for being hand-to-hand combatants and being skilled warriors, per se. But he also possesses a similar power set to Freddy Fazbear within FNAF world, as he can pretty much use the bites and other things as well. But overall, Bonnie is just not to be messed with, much like Freddy. Now Chica. Chica is the one that has the greatest appetite out of any other animatronic within this cast for this battle. She is also known for being the one that's obsessed with pizza the most as well, which also started that whole meme of her being obsessed with pizza, and she was commonly mistaken for being a duck, much like Bonnie was mistaken for being a girl and not a male. But Chica is in fact a chicken. But now let's talk about her powers and abilities and feats. She does fare scarily well to pretty much most of the other animatronics I've already discussed, like Freddy and Bonnie. She can crack skulls, is strong to stuff people in animatronic suits, which includes fully grown men, has many other bites and attacks from FNAF world, has a mastery of stealth like the others, and this list is kind of getting repetitive, as most of the animatronics are pretty similar when it comes to fighting and combat. Foxy the Pirate Fox is an animatronic that's mostly broken, but is still used throughout the Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria establishment due to the fact that he is by far the most popular FNAF animatronic of all time, at least out of the original 4 members, if you count Golden Freddy, which I'm not using for this fight, Springtrap instead. But anyways, Foxy is also clearly the fastest one out of any other animatronic, like Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and even Springtrap eventually, because he is fast enough to run across the hallway to the office in just a few seconds, which proves that his speed can easily cap around that athletic human level, much like the others, as he can easily run this fast, definitely with no issue anyways. But as for his durability and stuff, it pretty much caps out the same as the other characters I've already discussed. And as for his weaknesses, it's once again, he's not very durable and intelligence is not very high, due to the fact that he was still a kid when he was murdered, being that he lacks fighting experience and just overall experience in general. And last but not least, we have Springtrap, also known as William Afton. He was originally a former business partner, or one of the 2 business partners, who worked at Fazbear's Family Diner, the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, but not much of his past is known, as it's mostly shrouded in mystery. But what is known that he was a serial killer who mostly targeted children, and he also killed his friend Henry's daughter. However, he was eventually forced into the string bodysuit after the other souls haunted him and tried to punish him for what he did, I suppose. They were surrounding him. But that's when he found the string bodysuit, and he tried to hide inside of it to avoid them. However, the spring-lock suits were vulnerable to water, and if they were touched with water, they would eventually just start to move on their own, because these things were half animatronic and half suit, meaning that they could be played as animatronics, but could still be worn as it were a normal suit without the metal parts. But the metal parts ended up crushing Springtrap, which eventually killed him and allowed him to possess the suit itself, as he was pretty much stuck in there forever, essentially, because that was pretty much his own fault. But now let's talk about his powers, abilities, and feats. He is very clearly way more experienced than the other animatronics because they were still kids when they were killed, but Springtrap has been an adult for pretty much his whole life, as William Afton per se. He also comfortably sits in the wall levels of attack potency, and he is easily capable of dismantling all the animatronics with ease, including Freddy, who can easily crush skulls, as I said. He also is clearly way faster than the others. It can range since superhuman. He is easily able to move to different locations of Fazbear Fright between cameras in seconds, and should be comparable to the other characters who can do the same thing. And he's clearly an absolute genius because he is very elusive and stealthy, and he always can find a way to hide inside the darker corners in the cameras. It also restrains the intelligence of William Afton, of course, because they're both the same person, because yeah. But he is also a very skilled businessman and inventor, as he learned how to create and control the twisted animatronics who have illusion and mind manipulation based technology, as well as the company's After Robotics, and he also later created Liquid, a presumable remnant that allowed Carlton to communicate with the dead souls of children, meaning that he could possibly do the same thing as well. But as for his weaknesses, he is still weak against heat-based attacks because that's the one that pretty much melted him away to his uglier, newer form in, FNAF 5 or something. But overall, Springtrap is still a very dangerous opponent, and is definitely one that should not be underestimated at all. And that was pretty much it for the FNAF crew. Now let's go over to the Batman Arkham universe and discuss the Batfamily. Bruce Wayne was born as an ordinary child living in a wealthy family with his parents, Martha and Thomas Wayne. However, these two parents of his were shot down by Joe Chill, or presumably is him, by that same mugging man. Unfortunately for Bruce, he grew up without his loving parents, but since then, he had dedicated the rest of his life to fighting crime and seemingly ending it once and for all, which seemingly become his sole mission in life, to become the Batman. Well, that basically goes for most of the Batman throughout the Batman multiverse, really, but still, we already know about his basic origin. I'm sure everyone on planet Earth knows about it at this point. But now, let's talk about his skills and abilities. Well, they are human after all, but it's highly debatable whether or not Batman is truly human or not, because he has done some absolutely insane stuff throughout his life in the Arkhamverse, of course, and even into other media, especially in the comics, but we're still going to be focused on the Batfamily in the Arkhamverse. But anyways, Batman is known for being a master of all known forms of combat. He has bested the likes of Lady Shiva and Deathstroke in hand-to-hand combat, as well as being a well-known acrobatic. Well, that's merely more of Nightwing's thing, but Batman does skill out in that range as well. He also has tons of gadgets and weapons and vehicles at his disposal, like the Batmobile, which can turn into a tank whenever it's needed. This was seen in Arkham Knight when he was trying to fight down the militia, who had tanks on the militia's side. Batman used the Batmobile to turn into a tank and then to shoot down and destroy the tanks that were terrorizing Gotham City. But speaking of which, this version of Batman solidly sits in the small building level of power. He can easily trade blows with those who are comparable to his strength and to those capable of harming him. His explosive gel is capable of destroying large walls, and he's also strong enough to kick through steel bars and destroy brick walls. He can even effortlessly demolish gigantic wooden doorways and thick tables with a single kick. He could also capable of casually destroying cars by running over them thanks to his Batmobile, and can even destroy the tank drones, like I said before, and reduce them to tiny metal shards in just one shot alone. These tanks are easily capable of being destroyed on for any side, but the Cobra tanks are almost invulnerable from both penetration and impact from the front. So the fact that he was able to destroy these tanks was really impressive, but now let's get to more of the physical stats of Batman. His speed is actually very impressive, that he was fast enough to react and dodge rockets from a M202 flash launcher, which has a muzzle velocity of over 114 millimeters. He's also constantly dodged attacks from other well-known assassins and martial artists within the Batman Arkham universe, as well as constantly dodging bullets from other guns, and has even outpaced rounds from M4 carbines and HK416s many times in a row, even viewing them as near frozen to his eyes, proving that he is far faster, far more agile than you would first expect. He's also fairly strong physically, as he is capable of tossing fully grown men and snapping small metal bars with ease. He also once again held his own against Deathstroke, and even casually ripped apart Riddler's robots with just his bare hands. He even strong enough that he forced open a metal gate all by himself, and can even once again just whip around fully grown men. He was even strong enough to tussle with Killer Croc within Batman Arkham Origins, and even knocked him out with one punch, eventually defeating him. And keep in mind, Killer Croc is a giant crocodile man who is super strong and durable, and has a healing factor on his side, and Batman just knocked him out after their long fight with just one punch. The fact he was able to defeat him just like that after so long is just really super fucking impressive, I would say. As for his weaknesses, on the other hand, he has no regard for his own health and will do anything to protect the innocent or his loved ones, as he also falls into a severe state of depression upon witnessing them die, possibly. And as in the case of Jason Todd's death, he initially suffered from the Joker's affected blood after being cured, which resulted in him suffering these intense hallucinations of almost turning into the Clown Prince of Crime. So yeah, that could probably affect him during this fight. But overall, the Dark Knight remains undefeated for a very good reason. Dick Grayson was raised by his parents in a circus to become an acrobat, but after his parents were murdered, much like Bruce Wayne's, he was adopted by that same man, who would very much reveal to the young boy that he was the Batman. Dick would eventually be trained by Batman to become his sidekick, and would become the very first Robin. And years later, Dick would eventually become a hero of his own, known as Nightwing, working on his own for most of the time in Bloodhaven, but he would eventually drop by in Gotham and join Batman to fight him by his side, but more as an ally instead of a sidekick. But now that we know about that, Dick Grayson is a very skilled acrobat and fighter. Much like Batman, he sits comfortably in the small building range of attack potency, as he is comparable to him. That same Batman could still harm Killer Croc and knock him out after their long battle, so this proves that Dick Grayson or Nightwing can at least scale to him when it comes to attack potency. He's also at least slightly more faster than Batman, as he is slightly more swifter and agile, because, he is an acrobat after all. And as for his lifting strength, he can once again lift fully grown men across the room with ridiculous ease, and is once again on par with the Dark Knight again. And yeah, mostly his stats remain mostly similar to Batman's. Barbara Gordon Drake is the daughter of the Gotham City's police commissioner James Gordon, and was forbidden by her overprotective father of joining the GCPD. But instead, ironically, she ended up taking on the identity of Batgirl, and was a crime-fighting partner of Batman's for years. But that all ended until Joker shot her through the spine, which paralyzed her from the waist down, unfortunately. Now she uses a wheelchair. But instead of just giving up, Barbara adopted the new identity of Oracle and aided the Dark Knight with her computer and expertise, which provided Batman with a constant stream of information that helped fuel his aid for the battle against crime. But for the sake of this battle, we're going to be using Barbara if she was still Batgirl, so meaning that she's her most peak physical condition and her absolute peak form. But as for her skills and abilities per se, she does skill fairly well to the other members of the Batfamily like Batman and Nightwing. She is a highly skilled martial artist and fighter, and is extremely fast and agile. She once again scales at a small building level's attack potency, supersonic level speeds of dodging and reaction speeds, is very strong, very durable, and is actually, no, not very durable because, she still got shot in the spine, but as for her durability and her absolute peak form, it is still pretty impressive. She can take blows from other enemies and everything else, and thanks to scaling as well. She is also extremely smart due to her working as Oracle once again for several years. But as for her weaknesses, on the other hand, she's once again just a normal human weaknesses, and was still confined to her, wheelchair after the Joker paralyzed her from the waist down, unfortunately for her. Tim Drake was in the audience of the night of the Flying Graysons were murdered. When he witnessed Batman leap onto the scene, he was inspired by the hero's heroic actions, and Tim followed in the chronicles of Batman and Dick Grayson, the first Robin. After a long time-fighting career, and after Dick decided to become Nightwing, Batman's time without Robin was starting to feel, a little lonely there. So that's why Tim Drake came into the scene and decided to become the new Robin, at least the third Robin anyway, after, Jason Todd and all that stuff. But as for his stats, on the other hand, They are basically the same as the other three characters I just mentioned, but yeah, he also has the different weapons. He's also extremely fucking smart. He is probably the smartest person within the Arkhamverse, actually, because it is super impressive. But as for his standard weaknesses, but they are still standard human weaknesses, though. And finally, we have Jason Todd. He was a street orphan until he met Batman. After he saved him from the Joker, Jason was trained by Batman to become the second Robin. But unfortunately, I think we all know the story. He was beaten and tortured by the Joker before then being killed by a bomb, telling him that Jason was dead. Well, he did shoot him, but he wasn't dead. But after Batman fell to a deep depression, it was revealed years later that Jason was still alive and eventually became the Dark Knight and the main antagonist of Arkham Knight. Well, besides from Scarecrow anyway, he did eventually join Batman and become the Red Hood. But as for his stats and abilities, well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty similar to the other characters, but he did end up dodging attacks from the Batmobile and an M61 Vulcan-based machine guns, and can easily keep up with Batman in terms of combat and reaction speed, and react to bullets from Black Mask's Desert Eagles at close range, and his running speed is far superior to Batman's thanks to his advanced suit and weaponry. And his armor is also pretty good as well. He not mentioned also had the militia team on his side, as well as tons of helicopters and advanced weapons and tanks on his side as well. And after becoming the Red Hood, they've only become amplified, but as for his weaknesses, once again, they are just standard normal human weaknesses. But we have now discussed the Arkham version of the Batfamily. Now let's discuss which team would win. And now that I've discussed both of these teams, it's time I talk about who would actually win this fight. And this fight does seem fairly closer than it first seems at first, because the FNAF animatronics may not be the most talented, but they do still serve as being pretty good threats, especially when you count in their FNAF World feats and their feats from the first 4 games only. And the Batfamily from the Arkhamverse is just a whole different level, but still. Once again, as I said, despite the fact that FNAF crew does pose a pretty good threat, I would still have to say that the Batfamily would be the winners of this fight. And now, before you say the FNAF crew would win, given the fact that they are still pretty powerful in their own right, just nowhere near the skill, intellect, and power and weapons of the Batfamily. I mean, Bruce Wayne alone would be enough to take down pretty much most of the FNAF crew, well, besides Golden Freddy, which I'm not including, and even Springtrap would probably eventually just lose to the rest of the Batfamily because, for one, the FNAF animatronics here aren't very durable because they are pretty old and the spirits haunting them are still not very intelligent and they do lack combat experience. Well, besides from killing the Night Guard, who they assume is the purple guy. The Batfamily, on the other hand, have consistently fought plenty of different people, such as the Joker, Deathstroke, Bane, the Arkham Knight, well, Batman did, was eventually revealed to be Jason Todd, any more, Two-Face, Harley Quinn, Lady Shiva, Ra's al Ghul, and many more. I mean, seriously, the Batfamily have fought plenty of different enemies before, some of which are far stronger than the FNAF crew, so they would have the experience that they would know how to face someone like the FNAF crew, and plus, the Batfamily do have tons of different, more advanced weapons and gadgets at their disposal. The FNAF crew does have their certain, moves and stuff from FNAF World, but they're still kind of not coming really close to the Batfamily stuff. Well, I would suspect that this fight would be fairly close for a little bit, and they may give the Batfamily some trouble, but in the end, I would still have to say that the winners are the Batfamily, that being Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood. And that was the 50th episode of Multiverse Wars. 50 episodes. Man, it's been such a while since, Multiverse Wars has gotten so much traction, but now the series has gained more and more views, and I'm really thankful because I think I've really gotten more creative with my matchups ever since the first episode. It was just Superman versus Metro Man, which is kind of a basic matchup, but Now I think I've gotten more, creative and stuff, and really gotten more ideas for matchups that aren't just Marvel or DC or anything like that. But they are still going to be plenty of DC and Marvel matchups. I actually really like making those, but I still like making other series matchups as well. So thank you for those who have been watching the series ever since the beginning. Even though you may not like my Superman vs. Metroman video, which, I would still think that the animated series Superman would win against, Metro Man. But still, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It took me a little bit because of school and everything else. And I kind of got a little lazy afterwards. I kind of got burned out a little bit from all the work I had to do and everything. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking for this series for as long as it did right now. And there are plenty of more coming on the way. So yeah, see you guys later. Thank you, and goodbye.